I have learned, after 60-some years of watching people come and go, that we do not always choose our turning points. Sometimes they choose us. A stranger at the right moment. A phone call we almost ignored. A door that opened when we thought every door had closed. This story begins with one of those moments, the kind you do not see coming until it is already too late to walk away. The patrol vehicle stopped dead in the middle of the road. 50 yards ahead, a lioness lay in the dust. She did not run. She did not charge. She simply refused to move. Nathan killed the engine. The silence that followed pressed against Sam's ears like something alive. Her belly rose and fell in uneven waves. One flank lifted higher than the other with each labored breath. Dust clung to her fur, and something darker stained the ground beneath her hindquarters. She turned her head. Her amber eyes found the windshield. Found Sam. Not hunger, not rage. Something older. Something that made the hair rise on the back of his neck and his hands go still on the door handle. She was dying. And she was looking at him like she knew exactly who he was. Thank you kindly for being here today. If you would, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. We love hearing from folks all over. And if these stories bring you a little peace, we would be grateful if you subscribed. It helps us keep sharing more moments like this one. 48 hours earlier. Sam's eyes opened at 4:30 a.m. No alarm. His body remembered the rhythm of hospital shifts. Decades of pre-dawn rounds had carved the habit into his bones like an old scar that never quite faded. The tent canvas glowed faint gray. A kerosene lamp sat cold on the wooden crate beside his cot. Next to it, a photograph lay face down. The glass was cracked. He had packed it that way 11 months ago, when he left Boston without telling anyone where he was going. He did not turn it over. His left hand trembled as he reached for his boots. The tremor had started 3 years ago, the week after the lawsuit was dropped. A neurologist in Chicago ran every test, found nothing. Psychosomatic, she said. Sam did not argue. He knew exactly what it was. The clinic supply room was empty at this hour. That was the point. He laid out surgical instruments on a steel tray, cleaned each one with alcohol and cotton. The repetition steadied him: forceps, scalpel, retractor, suture needle. His hands remembered this work even when the rest of him wanted to forget. Outside. The Mara stretched flat and gold under a sky turning pale at the edges. Dust devils spun in the distance. The smell of dry grass and animal musk drifted through the canvas flap. Footsteps on gravel. Frank Morrison appeared in the doorway. 2 tin cups in his weathered hands. Black coffee, no sugar. He set one on the table and lowered himself onto an overturned crate with the careful movements of a man whose knees had filed complaints decades ago. Neither spoke. This was their ritual. Frank sipped, waited. "You sleep?" "Some." Sam said, "Liar." Frank drank again. "I ran from the Lord for 40 years. You know, he's got better lungs than me." Sam said nothing. Frank did not expect him to. The generator coughed to life somewhere behind the main building. Voices carried from the ranger quarters, the morning shift waking. Grace Holloway's boots sounded on the wooden steps before she appeared. She looked tired. The kind of tired that came from too many nights and not enough answers. "We've got a problem," she said. "That pregnant lioness we've been tracking, the one near the eastern ridge." She paused. "She's gone silent. No movement on the collar for 18 hours. Sam's hand stopped on the forceps. 18 hours. For a cat in late-stage labor, that was not silence. That was a countdown. The patrol vehicle rattled over dried ruts, suspension groaning with each dip and rise. Sam gripped the door handle as Nathan steered around a termite mound the size of a small car. "Grace wanted you out of that clinic," Nathan said, eyes fixed on the track ahead. Said you were turning into furniture." Sam did not answer. The morning heat was already building, pressing through the open windows like a weight. Sweat gathered at his collar and ran down the back of his neck. They crested a low ridge. Nathan's foot came off the accelerator. The Lioness lay in the middle of the road. She did not run, did not charge, did not move. Nathan killed the engine. The silence rushed in no birdsong, no insects, no wind, just the tick of cooling metal and the sound of her breathing. Labored, wet, wrong. Her belly was distended, sides heaving in uneven contractions. One flank lifted higher than the other with each spasm. Her fur was matted with dust, and something darker near her hindquarters dried fluid. Old blood. The signs of labor gone wrong. Nathan reached for the radio mounted on the dash. Sam's hand stopped him. "Wait." The Lioness's head turned. Her ears flattened, not aggression. Something else. Exhaustion. Surrender. Her amber eyes tracked the vehicle, scanning the windshield until they found the passenger window. Found Sam. He opened his door, slowly. The metal hinge creaked in the stillness. Nathan's hand moved to the tranquilizer rifle mounted beside his seat. "Sam, don't." Sam stepped out. The heat hit him like walking into an oven. Dust rose around his boots in small clouds. He took one step toward her, then another. The Lioness watched. Her breathing quickened, ribs expanding in shallow, rapid bursts. She tried to stand. Her front legs buckled beneath her weight. She collapsed back onto her side, and a low groan escaped her throat, guttural. Ancient. Unlike any sound Sam had heard from an animal before. He stopped 15 feet away, close enough now to see the details. The dried foam crusted at her muzzle, the flies gathering at the corners of her half-closed eyes, the faint movement at her birth canal a paw, tiny, dark-furred, motionless, stuck. Breech presentation. The cub was lodged sideways, blocking the passage. She had been pushing for hours, maybe longer. Her body was failing. "She's been like this since before dawn," Sam said. His voice came out rough, scraped raw by the dry air. "Maybe longer than that." Movement in the tall grass, 200 meters to the east. Sam's eyes tracked it without turning his head. A male lion. Massive, dark-maned. He stood half-hidden in the yellow grass, watching the scene with the patient stillness of a predator who knows time is on his side. He was not approaching, not leaving either. Territorial vigilance. This was his range, his female. But birth was not his concern. Males did not involve themselves in such things. He would wait. He would watch. And if the female died, he would move on. The rumble of a second engine broke the silence. Grace's Land Cruiser crested the ridge behind them and stopped, dust swirling around its wheels. She was out before the cloud settled, boots hitting the ground hard, moving toward Sam with purpose in every stride. She stopped beside him, looked at the Lioness. Her jaw tightened. "Dystocia," Sam said. "I can see that." Grace crouched, studying the laboring animal from a professional distance. "Breech. At least one cub stuck. She's dehydrated, exhausted. Heart rate's dropping, you can see it in the respirations." She checked her watch. "We're running out of time." Nathan approached from behind, rifle in hand, barrel pointed at the ground. "So, what do we do?" Grace stood, wiped the dust from her knees with sharp, efficient movements. "We transport her, sedate, load, and move. We do the delivery at the clinic where we have equipment." Nathan stared at her. "You want to sedate and transport a 300-pound wild cat? In the field? With a stuck cub already compromising her system? I want to save her." Grace's voice was flat, matter-of-fact, the voice of someone who had made hard calls before and would make them again. "The how is negotiable. The outcome is not." She turned to Sam. Her eyes dropped to his hands, steady now. No tremor visible then rose to meet his gaze. "You ever do a breech delivery?" Sam felt the weight of 30 years pressing against his chest. 3,000 deliveries, complicated cases, emergency rotations, lives saved, lives lost, one life in particular. "A few," he said. "On what?" The Lioness moaned again. The sound cut through the morning air, raw and desperate. The cub's paw at the birth canal had not moved, had not twitched. Sam did not know if it was still alive. "Humans," he said. Grace held his gaze. The male lion shifted in the distant grass, his silhouette rippling in the heat shimmer rising from the savanna floor. Nathan's hand tightened on the rifle stock. The lioness's breathing grew more ragged, each exhale a wet rattle that spoke of fluid where fluid should not be. Grace nodded once. "Close enough," she said. She reached for her radio. Sam looked down at his hands. The left one had begun to tremble again, faint, barely visible, but there, he made a fist, held it until the shaking stopped. The lioness's eyes found his again, amber, exhausted, waiting. She had no idea what was coming, neither did he. The sedation took hold in under a minute. Grace administered the ketamine meditomidine cocktail through a dart to the lioness's flank, and Sam watched her breathing slow. Her muscles soften, her amber eyes drift closed. The tension drained from her body like water from a cracked vessel. Loading her onto the reinforced flatbed took all four of them: Nathan, Grace, Sam, and a young ranger named Thomas, who had arrived with the second vehicle. 300 pounds of unconscious muscle and bone, limp and heavy as wet sand. Sam's shoulders burned with the effort. Sweat dripped from his chin onto the lioness's dusty fur as they secured the canvas straps. Frank had brought the supply truck. He waited behind the wheel, engine idling, watching through the rearview mirror as they finished the loading. The male lion remained in the grass, 200 meters distant. He had not moved from his position. His dark mane rippled in the heat shimmer as the vehicles pulled away, and Sam glanced back to see him still standing there, watching, until they crested the ridge and dropped out of sight. Territorial behavior, nothing more. Sam told himself that, kept telling himself that as the truck rattled toward the clinic, as he sat in the flatbed with his palm pressed flat against the lioness's rib cage, feeling the shallow rise and fall of her sedated breath. 30 years out here, Frank called through the rear window of the cab. "Never loaded a pregnant cat." "First time for everything," Sam said. Frank's eyes found his in the mirror, held for a moment. "That's what scares me." The clinic was a converted storage building, corrugated roof that pinged in the heat, concrete floor stained with years of use, walls that had been white a decade ago and had since faded to the color of old bone. The generator coughed and hummed behind the building. Surgical lamps, salvaged from a hospital in Nairobi, cast harsh circles of light onto the steel examination table. They transferred the lioness from flatbed to table. Her belly rose like a small hill beneath the lights, taut and distended. Grace started an IV line saline for hydration, fluids to combat the dehydration that had been slowly killing her in the field. Thomas brought the ultrasound unit, a battered portable machine that wheezed when it powered on. Sam pulled on surgical gloves. The latex snapped against his wrists. Grace worked the ultrasound probe across the lioness's abdomen, her eyes fixed on the grainy monitor. Two shapes appeared in the gray static. Two heartbeats, one strong, one weak. "First cub is positioned correctly," she said. "Head down, ready to deliver. Second is breech, cords wrapped." Sam moved to the birth canal. The tiny paw he had seen in the field was still visible, dark-furred, motionless. He inserted 2 fingers alongside it, feeling for the cub's position. Warm, slick. The walls of the canal contracted weakly against his hand. the lioness's body still trying to push even under sedation. "She's too exhausted to deliver on her own," he said. Grace adjusted the IV drip. "Then we help her." The first cub came within minutes. Sam guided it out with steady hands. A female, small, slick with amniotic fluid and streaked with blood. She did not move, did not breathe. Sam cleared her airway with a suction bulb, rubbed her chest with a sterile towel. Nothing. He rubbed harder, found her sternum with his fingertips and pressed in a rapid rhythm. 1, 2, 3. 4, the same neonatal resuscitation he had performed hundreds of times in delivery rooms that smelled of antiseptic and fear. The cub coughed. Fluid sprayed from her tiny nostrils. She took a breath, thin, reedy, but real. Then another. "She's breathing," Thomas said from somewhere behind him. Sam did not respond. He handed the cub to Thomas, who wrapped her in a warmed towel and placed her in a padded box near the heat lamp in the corner. 1 down, 1 to go. The second cub was still inside. Grace checked the ultrasound again. The heartbeat on the monitor had grown weaker, irregular, skipping beats like a watch running out of time. "Sam." Her voice was tight, controlled. "We need to talk." She pulled him to the corner of the room, away from the table where Nathan now monitored the sedated lioness's vital signs. "The second cub is stuck," Grace said. Her voice was low, meant only for him. "I can try to reposition, but the cord is wrapped around its neck once, maybe twice. If I pull wrong, it strangles. If I take too long repositioning, we lose the mother to blood loss or cardiac failure. Then don't take too long." Grace's jaw tightened. "This isn't Chicago General. Dr. Mercer, this is a tin roof in Kenya with equipment older than half my Rangers. We don't do miracles here. We do math. And the math says I've performed 2 of these procedures in my career. Both times. I lost the cub." Sam looked at her, at the lines around her eyes that spoke of too many long nights, at the sweat beading on her forehead despite the fans turning overhead, at the steadiness in her hands that cost her something to maintain. "I know exactly where I am," he said. He walked back to the table, pulled on fresh gloves, positioned himself at the birth canal where the second cub waited, trapped and fading. 20 minutes. That was what he gave himself. 20 minutes before the math turned against them all. His fingers entered the birth canal, found the cub larger than the first, wedged tight, found the cord, a thick, pulsing rope wrapped once around the neck, twice around the shoulder. He traced its path with his fingertips, memorizing the geometry, mapping the problem. "Vitals?" he asked. "Heart rate dropping," Grace said. She stood at the monitor now, watching the numbers fall. Mother's at 90, cubs at 60 and falling. Sam began to work. His left hand stabilized the cub's head. His right hand found the cord, created slack millimeter by millimeter, working it over the skull with movements so small they were almost imperceptible. The cub shifted inside the canal. Sam adjusted. His fingers moved in precise increments, the same movements he had made 1,000 times in operating rooms that smelled of blood and hope. 50, Grace said. 45. The cord came free from the neck. Sam rotated the cub 180 degrees, hindquarters first, then shoulders, then head. The canal resisted. He applied traction. Gentle. Steady. The kind of pressure that coaxed rather than forced. 38. The cub emerged, wet, dark-furred, limp. Sam lifted it, cleared the airway. Nothing. No breath, no movement, no sound. He rubbed the chest, pressed, counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing. "Sam," Grace said. He did not stop. His hands kept working. The cub's body was warm against his palms. Still warm. That meant something. That had to mean something. "Sam." It's been 90 seconds. The generator hummed. The surgical lamps buzzed overhead. The first cub mewled softly from her box near the heat lamp, alive and oblivious. The second cub did not move. Sam did not stop. His hands kept moving. Chest compressions, small, rhythmic. The cub's ribcage flexed under his palms, fragile as a sparrow's bones. Sam! Grace's voice came from somewhere behind him, distant and muffled as if through water. It's been 2 minutes. He heard her, did not respond. His fingers found the cub's sternum again. Press, release, press, release. The same rhythm he had used on newborns in the NYCU. The same pressure, the same angle. Muscle memory that lived in his hands long after everything else had failed. Nothing. The surgical lamp buzzed overhead. Sweat ran down Sam's temples, dripped onto his forearms, onto the dark fur beneath his palms. The smell of blood and amniotic fluid filled his nostrils thick, metallic, alive with urgency. Another room surfaced in his mind. Fluorescent lights instead of surgical lamps. Linoleum floor instead of concrete. A woman's hand gripping his wrist so hard it left bruises he wore for a week. The sound of a flatline that still visited him in the quiet hours before dawn, when sleep refused to come and the ghosts had nothing better to do. He pushed the memory down. Not now. Not here. Come on, he whispered. His voice was barely audible, meant for no one but himself and the small body under his hands. Come on. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. The cub's chest did not rise. Sam adjusted his position, tilted the tiny head back, opening the airway as far as it would go, cleared the passages again with the suction bulb, covered the nose and mouth with his own lips, and gave 2 small breaths gentle, controlled, the way he had been trained 40 years ago in a classroom that smelled of chalk and coffee. The cub's chest expanded with borrowed air, fell, did not rise again on its own. Grace moved closer. Sam felt her presence at his shoulder but did not look up. Could not look up. Could not afford the distraction. Sam, the window is... I know the window. He gave 2 more breaths. Resumed compressions. His left hand trembled against the cub's fur. The tremor was back, worse than before. His right hand stayed steady through sheer force of will. He made himself focus on that. The steadiness. The muscle memory that had not abandoned him even after 3 years of trying to forget. 2 minutes 30. The cub spasmed. Sam's hands froze. He watched. The small body jerked again, a convulsion that rippled from head to hindquarters, violent and sudden. Then a cough. Wet, weak, but real. Fluid sprayed from the cub's nostrils. Sam suctioned it away, clearing the passages. The cub coughed again, gagged, took a breath, thin, ragged, the sound of air forcing its way into lungs that had forgotten how to work. "Son of a gun," Nathan said from somewhere near the door. Frank's voice drifted in from outside, where he had been waiting by the truck. "Language." Grace exhaled. A long, slow release of air that she had been holding without realizing. Sam had not realized he was holding his own until the cub breathed again, stronger this time. Chest rising and falling in a rhythm that approached something like steady. He lifted the cub, placed it in Thomas's waiting hands. Watched the young ranger wrap it in a warmed towel and set it beside its sister under the heat lamp. 2 cubs, both alive, both breathing. Sam stripped off his gloves and pressed his palms flat against the steel table, willing his hands to stop shaking. They did not stop. Night came slowly to the Mara. The sky faded from orange to purple to black, and the stars emerged in numbers that still startled Sam after nearly a year in Kenya. No light pollution, no city glow, Just darkness and stars and the distant yip of hyenas beginning their evening rounds somewhere beyond the camp perimeter. The lioness regained consciousness around 8 o'clock. Sam watched through the mesh of the recovery enclosure as her eyes opened groggy at first, unfocused, the sedation still clouding her system. She lifted her head, sniffed the air. Her nostrils flared, testing the unfamiliar sense of concrete and metal and human. The cubs were pressed against her flank, tucked into the curve of her belly where instinct told them warmth and safety lived. The larger one, the firstborn, the one who had breathed on her own after only minimal intervention, nursed weakly. Her small mouth working against her mother's fur. The smaller one, the one Sam had brought back from the edge, lay still, too exhausted to feed, her breathing shallow but present. The lioness's tongue emerged, rough, pink. She licked the larger cub once, twice. Grooming motions, ancient and automatic. Then her head swung toward the smaller one. She sniffed it. Her ears flattened. Sam's chest tightened. The lioness did not lick the second cub. She turned away, pressing her body closer to the larger one, and closed her eyes. Grace appeared beside him. She had changed out of her surgical clothes into a faded field shirt and canvas pants. Her hair was still damp from washing, and she smelled of soap and the particular exhaustion that came from hours of focused work. "She won't remember you," Grace said. Her eyes were on the lioness, not on Sam. They don't work that way. No gratitude, no recognition, just instinct. "I know. Then why are you still standing here?" Sam did not answer. Inside the enclosure, the lioness's breathing had steadied into the slow rhythm of sleep. The larger cub nursed in small, weak pulls. The smaller one lay alone, separated from her mother by 6 inches of maternal fur that might as well have been a canyon. Grace watched for a moment longer. Then she walked away, her boots crunching on the gravel path that led back toward the main camp buildings. Sam stayed. The camp kitchen was a concrete slab with a corrugated roof and a propane stove that Frank had salvaged from a missionary outpost in Tanzania 20 years ago. Coffee in tin cups, black, no sugar, the same as every night since Sam had arrived. Frank found him at the enclosure fence an hour later. The old man carried 2 cups and a wool blanket folded over his arm. He handed 1 cup to Sam and draped the blanket across an overturned wooden crate before lowering himself onto it with the careful deliberation of a man whose joints had long since stopped cooperating. "You gonna stand there all night? Maybe." Sam said. Frank sipped his coffee. The steam rose and disappeared into the darkness above them. Somewhere in the bush beyond the camp lights, a lion roared distant, territorial. The male from the grass, perhaps, reclaiming his range now that the crisis had passed and the humans had retreated to their buildings. "My grandson turned 6 last week," Frank said. His voice was conversational, as if he were discussing the weather or the price of fuel in Nairobi. "His mother sent me a video. He was blowing out candles on a cake shaped like a dinosaur, had frosting all over his face by the time the song was done." Sam said nothing. The coffee warmed his hands. The night pressed in around them. "Watched it 4 times, Frank continued. "That video. Sat in my tent with my phone and watched it 4 times in a row." He paused, drank. "Didn't call." Sam turned his head slightly. Frank was not looking at him. The old man's eyes were fixed on the enclosure, on the sleeping lioness and her cubs. "Same reason you don't. I expect." "You don't know my reasons," Sam said. "No." Frank set his cup on the ground beside the crate. "I know mine, though pride, it's a quiet thing, doesn't make noise, just sits there in the corner, taking up space, filling all the rooms where better things ought to be." The lioness shifted in her sleep. The smaller cub mewled a thin, high sound that cut through the night air like a needle. The mother did not respond, did not stir, did not turn toward the sound of her own offspring calling out in the darkness. "You should get some sleep," Frank said. He pushed himself up from the crate, joints popping. "Morning comes early out here." "I know when morning comes." Frank tucked the blanket under his arm, paused at the edge of the lamplight. "That it does," he said. "That it does." He walked away. Sam stayed at the fence. The smaller cub mewled again, and this time the sound seemed to hang in the air long after it ended, unanswered and alone. Morning brought heat and dust and a problem Sam had been expecting since the moment the lioness turned away from her second-born. He arrived at the enclosure just after sunrise, coffee in hand, shirt already damp with sweat. The larger cub was nursing. The smaller one lay in the corner of the enclosure, separated from its mother by nearly 2 feet of empty concrete. Grace was already there. She crouched near the mesh, watching with the focused attention of a scientist observing an experiment she could not control. "She rejected it," she said without turning around. "Started around 3 this morning. Every time it approaches, she pushes it away, sometimes with her paw, sometimes with her teeth." Sam watched the smaller cub. Its eyes were open now, clouded blue, unfocused. The eyes of a newborn still learning how to see. It lifted its head weakly, orienting toward the warmth of its mother's body. It crawled forward, tiny paws scraping against the concrete floor. The lioness's head swung around. Her lip curled. A low growl rumbled in her chest, not loud, not aggressive, but unmistakable in its meaning. The cub stopped. It mewled, once confused, hungry, frightened, and retreated to the corner. "It happens," Grace said. She stood, brushed dust from her knees. Mothers prioritize the stronger offspring when resources are limited. It's survival math. In the wild, she wouldn't have the luxury of raising both. So we let it die. We let nature work. Grace turned to face him. Her expression was neutral, professional, the face of someone who had made peace with the mathematics of conservation long ago. "That's what we do here, Sam. We intervene when we can make a difference, but we don't override instinct. We don't play favorites." Sam watched the cub in the corner. Its breathing was shallow. Its belly was concave. It had not eaten since the delivery. Nearly 12 hours now. Without food, without warmth, without its mother's milk and protection, it would be dead by nightfall. A small body growing cold on the concrete floor of an enclosure in Kenya, thousands of miles from anywhere it was meant to be. He walked to the enclosure gate, unlatched it. Sam. He stepped inside. The lioness's head came up immediately, her eyes tracking him with the wary alertness of a predator assessing a potential threat. She was weak, still recovering, but she was also 300 pounds of muscle and claw, and Sam had no illusions about what she could do to him if she chose. He moved slowly, kept his body low, non-threatening. The smaller cub mewled when he approached, lifting its head toward the sound of his footsteps. He picked it up. It weighed almost nothing, a bundle of fur and bone and fading warmth, its heartbeat rapid against his palm. He stepped back out, closed the gate behind him. Grace watched him. Her face was unreadable. "I need a bottle," Sam said. "And formula. Whatever we use for neonatal carnivores, we have kitten replacement formula. It's not ideal for lions, the fat content is different. The protein balance is off, but it's close enough for emergency feeding." "That'll work." He carried the cub to the clinic, found a bottle in the supply cabinet, mixed the formula with warm water, testing the temperature against his wrist the way he had done 1,000 times with human infants in another life. The cub was too weak to latch at first. Its mouth moved against the nipple without coordinating, without understanding. Sam squeezed small drops onto its tongue until the instinct awakened and it began to swallow. 20 minutes later, the cub had taken 2 ounces. Its belly was no longer concave. Its eyes had drifted closed, and it slept against Sam's chest, its tiny heartbeat steady against his palm. Grace stood in the doorway. She had been watching the entire time. "You're creating a dependency," she said. Her voice was calm, clinical, the voice of someone stating facts rather than opinions. "That cub will imprint on you, on humans. When we release the family, she won't know how to hunt, won't know how to interact with her own kind, won't have bonded with her mother or her sibling. She'll be dead within weeks, maybe days. She won't survive the next 12 hours without intervention. That's nature. Sam, this isn't nature." He gestured with his free hand at the clinic around them, the concrete walls, the steel tables, the surgical lamps, the equipment salvaged from hospitals and research stations across 3 countries. "We took her out of nature the moment we loaded her mother into that truck. We made this our responsibility." Grace's jaw tightened. She stepped into the room, closer. "This isn't your daughter, Sam." The words landed like a physical blow. Sam's hands froze on the bottle. The cub stirred against his chest, disturbed by the sudden tension in his body. "What did you say?" "I said what everyone in this camp has been thinking since you arrived." Grace's voice was steady, hard, the voice of someone who had decided that kindness was less important than truth. "You're not saving this cub. You're replaying something else. Something that happened in a hospital 3 years ago that you've never talked about. And it's going to end the same way." Sam stared at her. The cub mewled softly in its sleep, oblivious to the weight of the words hanging in the air above it. "You don't know anything about what happened. I know you ran. I know you came here because it was easier to fix animals than to face your family. I know your daughter leaves messages you never return." Grace paused, let the words settle. "I know a man trying to atone when I see one. I've seen that look in the mirror." She turned and walked away before he could respond. The cub slept. Sam sat in the plastic chair, bottle in one hand, the small warm body pressed against his chest. Outside, the sun climbed higher, the heat built. Flies buzzed against the window screen, and somewhere in the enclosure across the compound, a mother lioness nursed her surviving cub and did not once look toward the clinic where her other offspring lay sleeping in the arms of a man she would never know. Sam closed his eyes. The cub's heartbeat pulsed against his palm, small, rapid, alive. Grace's words echoed in the silence. "This isn't your daughter." She was right. He knew she was right, but his hands kept working anyway. By evening, the cub had taken 4 more feedings, 2 ounces each time, spaced 2 hours apart. Her color had improved. Her gums were pinker, her breathing stronger. She slept in a padded box near the heat lamp, belly full, chest rising and falling in a rhythm that no longer seemed like it might stop at any moment. Sam had not slept in 32 hours. Nathan found him in the clinic, dozing in the plastic chair beside the heat lamp. The ranger set a tin plate on the counter, rice and beans and strips of dried meat that might have been goat. "Grace says you need to eat." Grace says a lot of things. Most of them are right. Nathan pulled up a second chair, sat down with the ease of a younger man whose body had not yet started to betray him. "She also says the cub is doing better, heart rate stabilized, lungs sound clear." Sam looked at the sleeping cub, at the heat lamp casting warm shadows across her dark fur, at the rise and fall of her small chest. "She also says you haven't checked your phone in 2 days. Sam's hand moved involuntarily to his pocket. The phone was there. He had felt it buzzing that morning while he was mixing formula. Had felt it buzz again during the 3rd feeding. Had not looked. "That's not your business," he said. "No." Nathan stood, pushed the plate closer to Sam's reach. But I've got a wife and 2 kids in Mombasa. I call them every night. Every single night, no matter how tired I am or how late it gets. Because some things don't keep, Dr. Mercer." He paused at the door. "Whether we want them to or not," he left. Sam sat in the plastic chair. The cub slept. The phone sat heavy in his pocket, pressing against his thigh like something that wanted to be noticed. He did not take it out, but his hand stayed in his pocket, fingers resting against the hard edge of the case. As the night deepened outside and the cub's soft breathing filled the silence of the empty clinic. 36 hours without sleep. Sam's hands shook as he measured the formula. 2 scoops. Warm water. Shake until dissolved. The routine had become automatic over the past day and a half, but his fingers fumbled with the bottle cap now, and powder spilled across the steel counter in a white streak. He wiped it up, mixed another batch, tested the temperature against his wrist. The cub was awake in her padded box, mewling with the insistent hunger of a creature who had learned that food came from this particular human at regular intervals, always hungry, every 2 hours, around the clock, like a human newborn. Sam lifted her, cradled her against his chest, guided the nipple into her searching mouth. She latched, drank. Her small body warmed against his palm. Frank appeared in the doorway. He carried a tin plate cold rice, beans, a strip of dried meat that had gone slightly stiff. "When's the last time you ate?" Sam did not look up from the cub. "I'm fine." "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked when you ate." "I don't remember." Frank set the plate on the counter. The metal scraped against steel with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet clinic. "You're a stubborn fool. You know that stubborn as a Missouri mule, and half as smart." "I've been called worse." "I don't doubt it." Frank leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest. "Grace wants to talk to you. Something about the mother." Sam's eyes flicked toward the window. Through the dusty glass, he could see the enclosure, the lioness lying on her side in the morning shade, her larger cub nursing. "What about her? She's agitated, pacing when she's not feeding. Grace thinks it's the smell." "What smell?" Frank nodded toward the cub in Sam's arms. "That one. The mother can smell her from here. It's stressing her out, confusing her instincts." Sam looked down at the cub. Her eyes were closed, her belly filling with formula, her heartbeat steady against his fingers. She had no idea her own mother wanted nothing to do with her. No idea that her scent was causing distress to the animal that had carried her for 3.5 months. "What does Grace want me to do? Move, you and the cub, to the supply tent on the other side of camp, far enough that the mother can't smell her?" "No." Frank's eyebrows rose. "No. The cub needs monitoring. The clinic has equipment. The supply tent has nothing but spare parts and old fuel cans. The supply tent has distance. That's what matters right now." Sam shook his head. The cub stirred against his chest, disturbed by the movement. He adjusted his grip, held her closer. "I'm not moving her." Frank studied him for a long moment. His weathered face gave nothing away. Then he pushed off the doorframe and walked away without another word. Grace arrived 10 minutes later. She did not knock. She pushed through the clinic door with purpose, boots loud on the concrete floor, and stopped directly in front of Sam's chair. "We need to move the cub." "Frank already told me. The answer is no. The mother's stress levels are climbing. She's pacing, vocalizing. If she doesn't calm down, she could reject the other cub too, or injure herself trying to break out of the enclosure to find this one. She already rejected this cub. She doesn't want her. Why would she? Because she's a wild animal. Sam." Grace's voice was sharp, impatient. "She doesn't think the way you do. She smells her offspring in distress somewhere nearby, and her instincts are screaming at her to respond, but she can't reach it. So she's spiraling, caught between rejection and maternal drive." Sam stood. The cub mewled at the sudden movement, then settled. He faced Grace across the narrow room. "I'm not abandoning this cub in a supply tent with no monitoring equipment. No one's asking you to abandon her. We're asking you to create distance, for both their sakes. The answer is still no." Grace stepped closer. Her eyes were hard, her jaw set. "You are not the only person in this camp who has lost something, Dr. Mercer, but you might be the only one who wears it like a badge. You don't know anything about me. I know you haven't checked your phone in 2 days. I know you have a daughter who's been trying to reach you for months. I know you came to Kenya because it's easier to care for animals than to face whatever's waiting for you at home." Sam's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "Careful. I'm not here to be careful. I'm here to save that lioness and both her cubs, including the one you're holding." Grace paused, drew a breath. "Your guilt is not more important than their survival." The word hit him like a fist to the sternum. Guilt. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words that came out were not the ones he had planned. "I came here because I killed someone." The room went silent. Grace stopped moving. Her expression shifted, not softening. Exactly, but changing. Recalibrating. Nathan had appeared in the doorway at some point. Sam had not heard him approach. The ranger froze, one hand on the doorframe. Sam's voice continued, flat and hollow, as if someone else were speaking through him. 3 years ago, a woman named Margaret Chen, 32 years old, first pregnancy. She came into my OR at 37 weeks with a placental abruption." He paused. The cub slept against his chest, oblivious. "I did everything right, every protocol, every procedure, textbook perfect, and she bled out on my table. Her baby was dead before I could get it out." No one spoke. The generator hummed outside. A fly buzzed against the window screen. I had to walk out of that operating room and tell her husband that I couldn't save them. Either of them. I had to watch his face when he understood what I was saying. Sam's left hand trembled against the cub's dark fur. The hospital cleared me. The review board cleared me. The lawsuit was dropped, but I still see her face every night. I still feel her hand on my wrist. She grabbed me at the end. When the monitor started screaming, she was awake. She knew what was happening. She looked at me like I could fix it, like I was supposed to fix it, and I couldn't. Grace's expression had changed completely now. The hardness was gone. Something else had taken its place. Not pity, not sympathy, recognition. "My husband bled out in the grass about a mile from here," she said. Her voice was quiet, controlled. The voice of someone who had told this story before, but not often. 5 years ago, poachers shot him. He was tracking a wounded elephant, thought he could save it. Led it back to the herd before infection set in." She paused. "I found him 3 hours later. He was still warm when I reached him." Sam met her eyes. "I spent 5 years waiting for someone to punish me," Grace said. "For not stopping him from going out alone, for not checking on him sooner, for not being there when it happened. But nobody did. Turns out I was the only one keeping score." The generator hummed. The cub's heartbeat pulsed against Sam's palm. Outside, the lioness had stopped pacing. He could see her through the window. Lying in the shade, her larger cub pressed against her side. Grace moved toward the door. "There's a portable monitor in the supply room. Battery-powered. Decent range. We can set it up in the other tent. You can watch her vitals from there." Sam did not answer. His hands had stopped trembling. The cub in his arms stirred, coughed. A small sound, wet and weak. Sam's attention snapped into focus. He looked down. The cub coughed again, harder this time. Her small body shuddered with the effort. Fluid rattled somewhere in her chest. "Grace!" She turned, saw his face, moved. The cub's breathing had changed. Shallow, labored. Each inhale was a struggle, a wet rasp that spoke of fluid where fluid should not be. Aspirated formula, Grace said. She was already reaching for the suction kit on the supply shelf. It happens with bottle feeding. The liquid goes down the wrong way, ends up in the lungs. Sam laid the cub on the examination table. Her chest heaved. Her eyes were open, clouded and unfocused, her mouth gaping with each desperate attempt to breathe. Heart rate dropping, Nathan said. He had moved to the portable monitor, pressing electrodes against the cub's small chest. 80, 75. Sam suctioned the airway. Thin, milky fluid came up formula mixed with mucus. He suctioned again. The cub gagged, coughed, gasped. 70. Grace handed him a syringe. Dexamethasone, 0.2 mils. It'll reduce the inflammation in her airways. Sam administered the injection. The cub's body shuddered beneath his hands. 65. He suctioned again. More fluid. The cub's chest rose, fell, rose. Each breath was a battle. Each breath was a small war fought in millimeters and seconds. "Come on," Sam whispered. "Come on." 60. He placed his palm flat on the cub's chest, felt the heartbeat weak, irregular, but present. His other hand worked the suction bulb, clearing fluid, opening airways. The cub coughed, gasped, drew a breath deeper than the ones before, then another. 62, Nathan said. 65. Her breathing steadied. Her eyes drifted closed. The heartbeat under Sam's palm grew stronger, finding its rhythm. 70. Stabilizing. Sam did not move. His hand stayed on the cub, one on her chest, one cradling her head. He watched the monitor, watched the numbers climb. 80, 85, 90. "She's stable," Grace said. Sam exhaled. He had not realized he was holding his breath. They moved the cub to a clean padded box, wrapped in warmed towels. Sam carried the box to the window that faced the outdoor enclosure and set it on the floor near the mesh barrier. The lioness stopped pacing. Her head turned. Her nostrils flared, testing the air. Grace touched Sam's arm. "Leave her. Let's see what happens." They stepped back, watched. The lioness approached the mesh, slowly. Ears forward now, not flattened. She pressed her nose against the wire, sniffed. The cub in the box stirred, mewled. A thin, high sound. The lioness's body tensed. Sam's hand moved involuntarily toward the box. "Wait," Grace said. The lioness lowered herself to the ground, pressed her flank against the mesh. The cub crawled forward weak, unsteady, and settled against the wire, as close to her mother as the barrier allowed. Separated by mesh and 6 inches of empty air, but together. "I've never seen that," Grace said quietly. Sam tried to respond. His throat was too tight. The words would not come. The cub slept. The mother breathed. And somewhere in Sam's pocket, his phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times, and he did not hear it at all. The phone was in his hand before he realized he had taken it from his pocket. Sam stood outside the clinic, dawn breaking orange and gold over the Mara. The cub was sleeping near the mesh, her mother dozing on the other side of the barrier. Everything was quiet. Everything was still. 47 missed calls, 12 voicemails. Most were from numbers he did not recognize. A 617 area code, Boston. His ex-wife's landline, the one she had kept after the divorce because she said it was easier than updating everything. A hospital prefix he knew too well. Numbers he had dialed 1,000 times during his years at Massachusetts General. One was from Caroline. His thumb hovered over the play button. The screen glowed in the early light. too bright against the soft colors of the savanna morning. He could feel his pulse in his throat, in his fingertips, in the hollow space behind his eyes where exhaustion had taken up permanent residence. He pressed play. "Dad." Her voice was thin, strained. Not the anger he had grown accustomed to hearing in her rare messages over the past year. Something else. Something worse. "I'm at 36 weeks. Something's wrong. They're talking about an emergency C-section." A pause. He heard machines beeping in the background, the murmur of voices. A hospital. His daughter was in a hospital, surrounded by strangers, and he was standing in Kenya watching the sun rise over a wildlife camp. "I know we haven't. I know things are—" Another pause, longer this time. He heard her breath catch, a small sound that cut through the static like a blade. "I just wanted to hear your voice. I'm scared. Dad." The message ended. Sam looked at the timestamp. 22 hours ago. His daughter had called him 22 hours ago, frightened and alone in a hospital bed. And he had been here, mixing formula, feeding a lion cub, playing veterinarian while his own child faced an operating room without him. He pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. His hands were shaking, both of them. He could not make them stop. The phone nearly slipped from his fingers, and he caught it against his chest like something fragile, something that might shatter if he let it fall. "Dr. Mercer." Nathan stood 10 feet away. He had approached from the ranger station, boots silent on the packed earth, and Sam had not heard him coming. The younger man's face was careful, neutral, the expression of someone who had learned to read situations before speaking. "Everything okay?" Sam tried to speak. The words came out broken, scattered, fragments of sentences that did not connect. "My daughter, she's in surgery. She was in surgery. I don't know if—" He stopped. His throat closed around the rest. Nathan's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes, something that might have been understanding or might have been judgment. Sam could not tell the difference anymore. He was not sure there was one. "And you've been here," Nathan said. His voice was flat, not cruel, not kind, just accurate. "Feeding a cat." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Sam felt them hit, felt the ripples spread outward through his chest, his stomach, his legs. He turned away, walked. His feet carried him without direction past the supply shed with its corrugated walls, past the water tank that dripped steadily onto the dry earth, past the generator that hummed and coughed in its concrete housing. He did not know where he was going, did not care. He ended up behind the storage building. The back wall faced nothing but empty savanna dry grass stretching to a horizon that shimmered in the early heat. No one came here. No one could see. Sam's legs gave out. He sat down hard, his back against the corrugated metal, still cool from the night. The ground beneath him was bare dirt, packed hard by years of sun and wind. He pressed his palms against his face and felt the stubble there. 3 days of growth because he had not bothered to shave since the delivery. The metal wall creaked as someone else leaned against it. Frank. The old man said nothing at first, just stood there, arms crossed, looking out at the grass like he was considering the weather. "How long has that message been sitting there?" he finally asked. 22 hours. "And you didn't check—" "I was. You were hiding." Frank's voice was hard, no warmth, no gentleness. The voice of a man who had stopped pretending kindness was the same as help. "Same as always, same as the day you showed up here with your one bag and your face like a closed door. Same as every day since." Sam's hands dropped from his face. He looked up at the old man, at the white hair, the weathered skin, The eyes that had seen 70 years of human foolishness and had stopped being surprised by any of it. "You think I don't know," Frank said. "You think I can't see it. You came here to disappear, to play doctor with animals that can't ask questions, can't remind you of whatever it is you're running from, can't look at you and wonder why you left. You don't know what I did. I know you ran. That's enough." Frank crouched down, his knees cracking like dry branches. His face was level with Sam's now, close enough that Sam could smell the coffee on his breath, the dust on his clothes. "I know you've got a daughter who's been calling for a year. I know you've got a grandchild coming that you've never mentioned once. I know you've been feeding that cub every 2 hours like it's going to fix something that can't be fixed." Sam's voice came out raw, scraped empty. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing." Frank stood. His joints popped again. "I want you to do something. Get on a plane. Go home. Face whatever's waiting for you instead of hiding behind animals that don't know your name and don't care if you live or die." He paused. "That's what men do. That's what fathers do." He walked away. Sam sat in the dirt, his back against the hot metal, his hands hanging useless between his knees. The sun climbed higher, and sweat gathered at his temples, ran down his neck, soaked into his collar. His shirt was stained with formula and dried sweat and something that might have been blood from the delivery 2 days ago. He had not changed it. He did not move. Grace found him an hour later. She came around the corner of the storage building and stopped when she saw him sitting there dirty, exhausted, his shirt stained, his eyes red-rimmed, his face slack with something that looked like defeat. She did not sit down, did not offer comfort. "I said hard things to you yesterday," she said. Her voice was matter-of-fact. "I stand by them. But this is something else." Sam did not look at her. "She might be dead. The baby. My daughter. Both of them. I don't know. I can't get through." "Then keep trying. And if something happened while I was here, while I was playing savior with a lion cub, then you'll find out, and you'll deal with it. That's what grown people do." Sam looked at his hands. The tremor was back, both hands shaking now, fingers twitching against his thighs. These hands had delivered 3,000 babies, had saved lives, had built a career, a reputation, a legacy that meant something once. And they had failed. Once. Catastrophically, and he had been failing ever since. He pulled out his phone, looked at the screen. 47 missed calls. 12 voicemails. He pressed Caroline's number again. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times, and then a click. A breath. A voice. "Dad." "Caroline." Her name came out broken, cracked down the middle like old wood. He cleared his throat, tried again. "I got your message. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Is the baby—" "He's here. Dad." Sam's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the nearest surface and overturned fuel drum, its metal hot from the climbing sun, the heat burning through his pants. He did not care, did not feel it. "He's okay," Caroline continued. Her voice was exhausted, hoarse, the voice of a woman who had not slept in days, who had been through something her body would remember for years. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. He's small. The doctors say he'll need to stay in the NICU for a few days, maybe a week, but he's okay. They're both okay. Sam pressed his free hand against his eyes. His chest was tight. His throat was tighter. Something was building behind his ribs. Something he had not allowed himself to feel in 3 years. "I didn't know," he said. The words were inadequate. Pathetic. He knew it even as he spoke them. "I didn't check my phone. I should have checked. I should have—" "Dad!" Her voice cut through the static, through the 11,000 miles of satellite and cable between them. Not angry, just tired. "Stop!" He stopped. Silence stretched between them. Sam could hear machines beeping in the background, the steady rhythm of monitors, the soft hum of hospital equipment. A baby crying somewhere on the ward, maybe hers, maybe not. He did not know. "Where are you?" Caroline asked. "You never told anyone where you went. Mom's been worried. I've been—" She stopped, started again. "Where are you? Dad." "Kenya." The word felt strange in his mouth, like a confession. "I'm in Kenya." "Doing what?" Sam looked at the clinic, at the enclosure beyond it where the lioness and her cubs slept, at the golden grass stretching to the horizon, shimmering in the heat. "Today, I helped deliver 2 lion cubs." A sound came through the phone. He could not tell if it was a laugh or something else, something caught between disbelief and recognition. "Of course you did," Caroline said. More silence. Sam waited. He had no right to fill it, no right to ask questions or make demands or steer the conversation anywhere. He had forfeited that right 11 months ago when he packed one bag and left without saying goodbye. "Mom used to say you only knew how to fix things with your hands." Caroline said, "Not your words. Your mother was right about most things. She said you'd come back when you were ready, that you just needed time to figure out how to live with whatever happened." A pause. "She always believed in you more than you deserved." Sam's throat tightened. He could see Margaret's face the way she looked at him on their wedding day, 40 years ago. The way she looked at him when Caroline was born, when he held his daughter for the first time and his hands shook so badly he was afraid he would drop her. The way she looked at him at the end, when the cancer had taken everything except her certainty that he would find his way back. He had not found his way back. He had run the other direction as fast and far as he could. "I've been leaving you messages for 11 months. Dad," Caroline said. "Did you listen to any of them?" "No." The word hung in the air. Honest, brutal, the least he owed her. "Why not?" Sam opened his eyes. The Mara stretched before him, endless, indifferent, beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with him or his failures. "Because I was afraid you'd sound like you hated me," he said. "And I was afraid you'd sound like you didn't." Silence again. Longer this time. Sam could hear her breathing, could hear the distant sounds of the hospital ward where his grandson lay in an incubator learning how to be alive. "Michael was with me," Caroline said finally. "When they did the surgery, he held my hand the whole time, talked me through it. He was there." "Good." Sam's voice cracked on the word. "Good. I'm glad. But I called you anyway." The words hung in the air between continents, between time zones, between the man Sam had been and the father he had failed to become. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're my father." Caroline's voice broke on the last word, and Sam heard something in it that he had not earned, not love exactly, but something adjacent to it, something that had survived his absence, his silence, his cowardice. "Because I spent 34 years watching you save other people's babies, and when I was lying in that hospital bed, scared out of my mind, I wanted my dad, even if you couldn't do anything, even if you were 10,000 miles away. I just wanted to hear you say it would be okay." Sam's hand pressed harder against his eyes. The tears came anyway, hot, sudden, unstoppable. He had not cried in 3 years, not since the night of the delivery. Not since he walked out of that operating room and saw Thomas Brennan's face and understood that nothing would ever be the same. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were insufficient. He knew they were insufficient, but they were all he had. "I'm so sorry, Caroline, for everything, for leaving, for not calling, for not being there when you needed me. I know. I don't know how to fix it." "Neither do I." She paused. "But Mom would say that's not the point. She'd say you just have to start somewhere." Sam wiped his face with the back of his hand. His cheeks were wet. His shirt was soaked with sweat and formula stains and 3 days of accumulated failure. He probably looked like a madman, sitting on a fuel drum behind a storage shed in Kenya, crying into a phone. He did not care. "I named him Samuel," Caroline said. Sam stopped breathing. "Not because I forgave you," she continued. Her voice was steady now, calm. The voice of someone who had made a decision and intended to stand by it, "because I wanted him to have something from you. Even if you weren't there, even if you never came back." The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward, touching everything. Samuel, his grandson, named after him. Not forgiveness. Something else. Something harder to define. "I want to meet him," Sam said. "I want to come home." "Then come home." "I will. As soon as the lions are released. A few more days. Maybe 3 weeks. We'll be here." Caroline's voice softened, just slightly. "We were always here, Dad. You just weren't looking." The line went quiet. Sam heard her breathing, heard the monitors, heard a baby's cry closer now, more insistent. "That's him," Caroline said. "He's hungry. I have to go." "Go," Sam said. "Take care of him." "I will." A pause. "Dad." "Yeah. The cubs you delivered. Are they okay?" Sam looked at the enclosure. The lioness was awake, lying on her side in the morning shade. Both cubs were visible now, the strong one nursing, the small one pressed against the mesh, as close to her mother as the barrier would allow. "They're okay," he said. "They're both okay." "Good." Another pause. "That's good." The line went dead. Sam sat on the fuel drum. The phone hung limp in his hand. The sun beat down on his shoulders, and the sweat dried on his face, and the tears dried with it, leaving salt tracks on his stubbled cheeks. He thought about what Caroline had said, about her mother, about the name she had given her son. She had not forgiven him. Not yet, maybe not ever, but she had reached out anyway, had kept reaching, for 11 months, while he deleted her messages and ignored her calls and pretended he was doing something noble by disappearing. She had not saved him. She had simply refused to let him disappear completely. And that stubborn, painful, unearned grace had come from somewhere, from someone, from him, from the father he had been before everything fell apart. From whatever small piece of goodness had survived his failure and taken root in his daughter. The man he thought he had killed in that operating room 3 years ago, he was still alive. In Caroline, in the way she refused to give up on him even when he had given up on himself. Sam stood. His legs were unsteady. His hands were still. He walked toward the enclosure. The lioness watched him approach, her amber eyes tracking his movement with the wary patience of a wild thing that had learned to tolerate human presence. The smaller cub stirred against the mesh, mewled, settled. Sam looked at the phone in his hand, at the black screen, at his own reflection ghosted in the glass gaunt, exhausted, older than he remembered, 3 weeks. Then home. He had a grandson to meet. 3 weeks later, the transport cage sat on the flatbed, strapped down with canvas webbing. Inside, the lioness lay on her side. Both cubs pressed against her flank, the strong one and the small one, both nursing, both alive. Sam stood beside the vehicle, watching through the mesh. The lioness's eyes found his, held for a moment, then drifted closed. She did not know him, would never know him, and that was exactly as it should be. Nathan drove. Grace sat in the passenger seat with the tracking equipment on her lap. Sam rode in the back with Frank, the hot wind whipping dust into their faces as the truck bounced over dried ruts and termite mounds and the endless golden grass of the Mara. The release site was 15 kilometers from the clinic open savanna, a seasonal waterway nearby. No competing prides in the immediate territory. Grace had scouted it herself over the past week. Good habitat, good water, good chances. The truck stopped. Nathan killed the engine. Sam climbed down. His boots hit packed earth. The air smelled of dry grass and acacia and something wild, something untamed. The smell of the Mara at the edge of the wet season. The smell he would carry with him for the rest of his life. Grace unlocked the cage. The door swung open on oiled hinges. The lioness did not move at first. Her ears swiveled, tracking sounds: the tick of the cooling engine, the call of a bird somewhere in the grass, the breathing of the humans who stood watching. Her nostrils flared, testing the air for threats. Then she stood, slowly, carefully. Her muscles had rebuilt over the past 3 weeks, her body recovering from the ordeal of the delivery, but she was still cautious, still learning to trust her own strength again. She walked to the edge of the cage and paused, looked out at the grass, at the sky, at the horizon stretching endless and free. She stepped down. The cubs followed, stumbling, wobbling, finding their legs on solid ground for the first time outside the enclosure. The larger one moved with purpose, staying close to her mother's flank. Instinct already teaching her where safety lived. The smaller one, the one Sam had fed every 2 hours, the one he had brought back from the edge twice, hesitated at the cage's lip. Sam watched. His hands gripped the truck's side panel. He did not breathe. The small cub jumped down, landed awkwardly on legs still learning their work, righted herself, took a step, then another. The lioness turned her head, watched her offspring approach, did not push her away, did not growl, just watched. The cub reached her side, pressed against her leg, and the lioness's tongue emerged rough, pink, massive against the small dark head and licked her once, twice. Sam exhaled. Movement in the tall grass, 50 meters to the east. The male lion emerged from cover, his dark mane catching the late afternoon light. He did not approach the female. Did not come closer. He stood at the edge of the clearing, watching with the patient stillness of a territorial male assessing his domain. The lioness saw him. Lifted her head, made a low sound, not a roar, something softer. Recognition, perhaps, or simply acknowledgement. She began to walk. The cubs followed, stumbling through the grass on unsteady legs. The male turned and moved parallel to them, keeping his distance, escorting without approaching. Within minutes, they had disappeared into the golden sea. First the lioness, then the cubs, then the male, until only the swaying grass marked where they had been. Grace appeared beside Sam. "You weren't here to save yourself," she said. Her voice was quiet, matter of fact. "But you did anyway. Funny how that works." She extended her hand. Sam took it. Her grip was firm, dry, professional, no hug, no tearful goodbye, just respect between two people who had seen each other at their worst and decided it did not matter. "Take care of yourself, Dr. Mercer. You too, Dr. Holloway." She walked back to the truck. Nathan was already behind the wheel, ready to return to the clinic. They had other work waiting, other animals, other emergencies, other lives that needed saving. The Mara did not pause for sentiment. Frank's supply truck idled nearby. Sam climbed into the passenger seat. The airstrip was 40 minutes east. Frank drove in silence, navigating the rutted track with the ease of 3 decades' practice. The sun dropped lower, painting the sky in shades of copper and rust and deep orange. "You know," Frank said, his eyes on the road, "that lioness didn't pick you because you're special." Sam looked at him. "Then why?" "Because you were there." Frank's weathered hands were steady on the wheel. "Sometimes that's all anyone asks. That you show up, that you don't walk away when things get hard. You believe that. I believe we don't get to pick our second chances." And Frank slowed for a washed-out section, eased the truck through, accelerated again. "We just get to live them. Or not." The airstrip appeared ahead, a strip of packed dirt, a corrugated hangar, a Cessna warming up on the runway. Sam's bag was already loaded. Grace had arranged everything. Frank stopped the truck, killed the engine. They sat in silence for a moment. The propeller spun, throwing heat shimmer across the tarmac. "Now, get on the plane," Frank said. "Before I say something I'll regret." Sam opened the door, stepped out, turned back. "Frank!" The old man looked at him. "Thank you." Frank nodded once. Did not speak, did not need to. Sam walked to the plane. The Cessna banked east as it climbed. Nairobi first, then London, then Boston, 23 hours of travel, 23 hours to figure out what he would say when he landed. Sam looked out the window. The Mara spread below dust-colored grass, scattered acacia, the silver thread of a river catching the last of the light. Somewhere down there, a lioness walked with her cubs, both of them, the strong and the small, alive because a man's hands remembered what his heart had tried to forget. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. The screen glowed with a photograph Caroline had sent that morning his grandson. 3 weeks old now, eyes open, one small fist pressed against his cheek. Samuel James Mercer, named after a man who had not earned it. Sam looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he reached into his carry-on bag, found the other photograph, the one with the cracked glass, the one he had carried face down for 11 months. He turned it over, Caroline on her wedding day, smiling at the camera, smiling at him. He had been there that day, standing beside her, giving her away. He had let himself forget that, had let the guilt bury everything else, the good years, the good moments, the 1,000 small kindnesses that had made him a father worth loving once. Sam tucked both photographs into his shirt pocket, over his heart, the way he had carried Caroline's baby picture 34 years ago, before everything fell apart and rebuilt itself and fell apart again. The plane climbed higher. The Mara disappeared beneath the clouds. He closed his eyes. Somewhere ahead, his daughter was waiting. His grandson was waiting. A life he had abandoned was waiting to see if he had the courage to come back. He did not know if he could fix what he had broken, did not know if he could be the father Caroline deserved or the grandfather Samuel needed. But he was going home. And for the first time in 3 years, that felt like enough. There is something quiet that stays with us after a story like this one. A weight in the chest that is not quite sadness. A tenderness that does not ask to be named or explained. Perhaps you recognize it. Perhaps you have carried something similar, a phone call you did not make, a door you closed too quickly, a face you have not seen in longer than you ever intended. Many of us have stood where Sam stood. Many of us have run from the very places we most needed to be. And some of us are still finding our way back. If that is where you are tonight, it is all right. You do not need to have the answers before the sun comes up. You do not need to fix everything in order to begin. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is simply turn around. Sometimes the smallest step is the only one that matters. The story is finished now. But what it stirred in you does not have to settle just yet. Let it sit a while. Let it breathe. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.